This woman goes out of control when police find her. Live PD. If you haven't heard of Live PD yet, you're missing out on some entertaining reality television like never before, because these are real-life people with real cases. The show has received a lot of traction due to the raw footage that are rarely edited and hardly ever scripted. Since Live PD handles some of the most absurd police scam cases, today we feature some of the most bizarre females featured on the show. These women are delusional, probably insane, and of course, the queens of reality television drama. Here are 5 women that go out of control on Live PD. Number 5, but I don't want to go. More often, when we find ourselves in compromising situations, we tend to seek help. For this woman who was found in Sacramento, she wasn't quite ready to leave with the fire department team, nor the EMS. Reports claim that she had suffered from a seizure and was still confused about her surroundings. When asked about which city she was in, she could answer that, but was uncertain about what year it was. Her answers seemed short and couldn't complete sentences, which alarmed the paramedic team. After several negotiations, the girl remained firm to her word that she didn't want to go to the hospital and was threatened to be taken against her own will or get reported to the police, since she didn't seem to be of sound mind. The main concern was the fact that they were scared her seizures would erupt once more and she would put herself and those around her at risk. From the video, we can see the woman being forcefully carried away as she tries to resist. The reason as to why she got the seizures in the first place remains unclear, but we hope she got the right help even if it's against her will. Number 4. Is something missing? When a woman was stopped by an officer because her car lacked registration plates, she was rude and confirmed that indeed was aware of that and claimed that she was taking care of it. When asked for ID, she cooperated and gave the officer her ID. On further getting questioned on what she meant by taking care of it, the woman said she owed $600 in tickets, but the officer was more concerned about the woman's personal property tax payment. Despite being in front of the law, she was clear that she had no insurance on the car, neither did she have a tax payment. To save the officer from pointing out her previous offenses, she bluntly told her that she could trace back the history of tickets when running her ID. At this point, the officer was beyond shocked as to how bold this woman was despite being caught on the wrong. She hadn't paid her tickets, had no license plates on her car, no insurance on the car, hadn't paid her property tax, and neither did she have a title for the car. The drama didn't end there. When asked how long she'd been driving the car without plates, she comfortably answered a couple years and continued to be rude by telling the officer that it was just free information and didn't care what she did with it and could tow her if she wished. The woman continued to spark up an argument as to why she was getting detained on the road when she was clear that she lacked several items. She thought she could get a ticket and get away with it like before, but at this point, the officer lost it and requested she stepped away from the car since she didn't have a title to it and had no other solutions but to have it towed. The woman insisted that she had a title and wanted the officer to release her. When she noticed the cameras on the scene, things got more interesting as she didn't want to get filmed. The woman had the audacity to ask the officer, "Would you like to verify why you're doing all this?" as if she didn't have the several offenses up her belt. She continued to question the woman on the registration status of her car as she insisted it was registered to her. The officer decided to send the car report to her colleagues to run a search and discovered that it was registered under a woman named Sarah. Things got more interesting since the lady whose name is Alice and not Sarah proceeded to defend her arguments by stating that she bought the car. The officer was clear that the car was getting towed and Alice started asking why it was getting towed despite initially stating they could tow it if they wished. A male passenger in the back sparked up an unnecessary argument when he started threatening the camera person after he asked the officer how he was to get to work the next Monday if they towed their car. Things didn't end well for him since he ended up getting cuffed and put to sit on the ground. The officer was firm on him when she made sure he realized he lost privilege when he started threatening the cameraman. Alice, who was now confused as to whom they would call to pick them up, at the time, still insisted that she was getting detained for nothing and had no offense to have the car towed. Seriously? Like, if delusional had a face, this woman would be it. Registration issues, insurance issues, title issues, and those are just a few of the issues. Number 3, Mini-Mart mayhem. It just had to be a mini-mart. Almost every day there's bound to be some drama happening at one. On this episode, there was a sparked up argument between a man and woman, even before the officer pulled over at the scene. The woman had already started telling the officer that she was punched by the alleged man over 7 times. The officer seemed uninterested to know what the lady was saying and requested she stepped out of the car. There was a man on the scene and the police were requesting him to back up as the woman kept on shouting that he wasn't the one that assaulted her. After the slight confusion, the man who had been cuffed by the police was rescued by another lady on the scene who claimed to be with him. At this point, the chaos had started to spark up before the original suspect was identified on the scene. The woman who called the officers started getting out of hand, screaming that the man she identified had hit her, and the police opted to cuff her to avoid any further fights taking place. Another lady in a hoodie joined the scene to intervene, but was told to back off or risk getting arrested as well. The accused man was instructed to put his hands behind his back, but another story escalated as he claimed to be a victim that was stabbed as the other officers sided with him. At this point, everything felt like a circus since there was like 3 cases going on at the same time. According to this man, the lady who was accusing him of punching her was the one that stabbed him and had witnesses to prove it. The man who was falsely accused at first was apologized to by the officers since it was a case of mistaken identification. As it turns out, he was the one to save the day since he was the witness to the crime and saw everything that transpired between the two who were both pointing fingers at each other. The officer took a statement from the witness before getting to the two who were now raging at each other. The man with the stabbed eye narrated his side of the story and claimed that the woman dragged him with her car. It all started inside the mini-mart when the woman claimed he had cut in line. Next thing he knows, the woman comes with a knife and the rest is history. The knife, which was still at the scene, was evidently used since there was some blood on it. When the lady was asked why she was punched by the man, she claimed that she pushed at him and got angry when she was trying to defend herself. The police couldn't comprehend how she carried the knife with her, but the lady explained it was secured at the back of her leg and only pulled it out as self-defense, since she couldn't punch the man back. The whole situation was tricky since the officers had no idea who was telling the right story of how everything went down. However, thanks to the witnesses, it was determined that the woman was the aggressor since she drew a knife and tried to stab the man, which she successfully did across the neck. When the chaos calmed down, the female was taken in as a suspect as ambulances attended to the stabbed man. And with that, it's now time for today's best pick. Today's photo was sent to us by a subscriber, so if you come across a photo online and want to know more details about it, just send it over to us. We might even feature it in a future video. Number 2, Crazy Tongue Woman. This is one of the most iconic episodes on the Live PD lineup when this clip of this woman went viral. The photo is part of a clip of a woman from Jeffersonville who was accused of possessing a controlled substance. The clip had been turned into GIFs, especially as the police told the woman to stick her tongue out and turned out to be a freak show. The woman was suspected of suspicious activities as she had packed her car on the side of the road. Evidently, her face was clear that she was abusing something since she seemed out of it. On being confronted by the police, she tried to outsmart them by getting rid of the pills in her back pocket, but the officer had his eyes on her the whole time and was able to bust her. Number 1, Who's Your Boyfriend? Bonnie and Clyde came to life on Live PD. An officer noticed a vehicle driving around weirdly in no particular direction as if they were avoiding the police car. When it was finally flagged down, the one driving was a woman who claimed to be lost since she was getting evicted and wasn't sure where she was going to stay. Her excuse was that she was trying to make a stop at McDonald's but ended up taking a different route. There was a man in the passenger seat whom the officer asked for their ID but had none on them. When the officer asked for his official names, it seemed like false information since the man seemed a little bit too nervous. The officer then requests to speak to the lady driver outside of her car away from the man in the car. The officer wanted information on the man on the passenger seat as the lady claimed it was her boyfriend. When asked for his name, the woman said he was called Raymond, but the officer wasn't buying it. When asked how long she's known him, the two had dated for over 3 months at the time. The officer proceeds to confront the man once more and requests him to step out of the car before trying to cuff him. As officers came to apprehend him, a twist of events took place as the man tries to escape. Luckily, there were enough officers to hold him down. The woman, who was also scared at this point, was told to lay on the ground and drop her phone by the officers. The man was given the option to surrender his hands or risk getting tased. After minutes of resisting arrest, he was finally cuffed and charged for obstruction. The officers had called for an ambulance to check him out since he had acquired some bruises during the whole ordeal. The story then changes when the man was asked if the girl was his girlfriend and said that they had only dated for about 2 weeks, yet known each other for 4 years, contrary to the woman's initial statement that they had dated for 3 months. The story now turned for the woman, who claimed the man was her friend's ex and they weren't even in a relationship. The officers called her out for being a liar since she clearly knew who he was yet refused to tell the officers. Luckily, she wasn't going to jail that day. A fingerprint scanner proved that the man was wanted for a probation violation for traffic warrants. What could have just been a week's arrest had they not resisted turned into 3 more charges. Which was the most delusional of them all? Personally, Alice with her towed car stole the show on this video for me.